Y'all, this is not just another tragic death story. This is the kind of case that starts looking like a breakdown and slowly turns into something much darker. Because what if everything you've been told is only half the truth? Jaguar Wright is now stepping in, and her claims are shaking this entire case to the core. According to her, Ashlee Jenae didn't just die. She allegedly found something she was never supposed to find. We're talking about a fiancé, Joe McCann, who was living a double life in Zanzibar. Secret movements, local connections, and nights that didn't add up. And the moment Ashlee allegedly exposed it, everything spiraled. Now here's where it gets disturbing. A controlled timeline, separate villas, a perfect distance that makes one person look completely uninvolved. But Jaguar is asking the question nobody can ignore. Was that distance real? Or was it designed? Because Ashlee was found alive, struggling and inside that room. And then there's the ring, found away from her, with alleged blood traces. The autopsy, done, but still hidden. The family, still waiting. And now, whispers are getting louder that this case may have crossed borders, allegedly drawing attention far beyond local authorities. So, the real question is no longer what happened, it's this. Did Ashlee Jenae uncover a truth that cost her everything?
Details on the investigation into the death of Ashlee Robinson. Her family is demanding answers after the influencer from South Jersey was found dead during a trip to Africa where she had just been engaged.
She just lost her life while she was supposed to be celebrating and having a dream vacation in Zanzibar with her new fiance. I mean, we're talking about a birthday. We're talking about an engagement that happened on her.
The call was shocking. It was devastating and scary, honestly, because we don't know what's going on, what happened.
What started as a private getaway now reads like a timeline full of fractures. Small details that don't sit right, moments that feel too precisely arranged, and a silence that keeps getting louder the more people look into it. At the center of it is Ashlee Jenae, a woman who, according to sources, arrived in Zanzibar expecting a reset in her relationship. Instead, what unfolded behind closed doors quickly turned volatile. From the moment she checked in with Joe McCann, tension was already present. Staff reports and local accounts suggest that arguments weren't occasional, they were constant, raised voices inside the villa, doors shutting harder than they should, a kind of pressure that didn't stay hidden for long. At one point, it reportedly escalated enough for neighboring guests to alert hotel staff. That's when the first major decision was made. They were separated. Ashlee remained in one villa. Joe was moved to another, roughly 8 to 10 minutes away. On paper, it looks like de-escalation. In reality, it creates something else entirely. Distance. Measurable, timed, and later, questioned. Because distance in cases like this can either be coincidence or construction. According to emerging commentary from Jaguar Wright, that separation is one of the most critical points in the entire timeline, not because of what it shows, but because of what it prevents. If one person is placed far enough away at just the right time, it becomes very difficult to place them anywhere else, and that's exactly where the story begins to shift.
She was happy, she was excited about life and looking forward to her future. So now you got two completely different narratives.
Officially, no, we have not talked to anyone from the police or anybody in the medical field at all. Nothing.
But Tanzania don't care about who he is or how much he's worth. You think you're going to come up in their country and unalive they people? Because people, granted, she is from Kenya. She has citizenship both in Kenya and in the U.S. Not only, but that is the same exact reason why they seized his passport and he's being detained now.
Sources claim that before things reached that breaking point, Ashlee had already discovered something that changed her entire perception of the trip. Allegedly, she became aware that Joe wasn't just acting distant, he was operating within a pattern, one that included frequent absences, unexplained movements, and connections with local women that went beyond casual interaction. This wasn't a suspicion anymore. According to these claims, it was confirmation. And once that line is crossed, arguments don't stay arguments, they escalate. There are reports of a confrontation at reception. Public, tense, and impossible to ignore. A moment where emotions were no longer contained within villa walls. Witnesses allegedly heard accusations, not vague ones, direct, cheating, deception, a double life that had finally been exposed. After that, the energy of the situation changed, not just anger, but instability, because when exposure happens in an environment where one person holds familiarity and the other doesn't, the balance shifts. Joe, according to locals, was not new to Zanzibar. He knew the layout, he knew people, he understood how things moved behind the surface. Ashlee did not, and that imbalance matters, because later, when the timeline is presented, it relies heavily on structure, where each person was, how far apart they were, who saw what, and when. But structure only works if every piece is trusted, and right now, that trust is being questioned. By the time the critical night arrives, the situation is already unstable. The arguments have happened, the separation has been enforced, the emotional tension has peaked. What remains is a sequence of events that, at first glance, appears straightforward. But the more it's examined, the more it starts to fracture, because this isn't just about what happened that night, it's about everything that led up to it, and whether the story being told now was already shaped before anyone started asking questions.
Actually happened? What got her to where she is now? That's the thing that's still boggling my mind, because right now, I'm telling you right now, guys, this story is far from over. There's a lot of deep diving into this. A lot of people are wanting to know, did something sinister actually happen or not?
Ashlee's final posts on social media were of her celebrating her birthday with giraffes in Tanzania, Africa, and getting engaged to her boyfriend, Joseph McCann. But there's a local report claiming initial investigations determined Ashlee took her own life during the trip after falling out with her fiancé just days after he proposed.
By the time the night in question begins, the narrative is already under pressure. Arguments have been reported, separation has been enforced, and the timeline, the one that will later define everything, is about to take shape. At approximately 7:30 p.m., a staff attendant makes a routine visit to the villa where Ashlee Jenae is staying. Nothing about the moment initially stands out. It's ordinary, functional. He brings her a phone charger, but what happens next becomes one of the most discussed details in the entire case. Ashlee reportedly asks him to return in about 10 minutes. Not later, not hours later, 10 minutes. It's a small window, controlled, specific. The kind of detail that seems insignificant until everything else begins to depend on it. The attendant leaves, time passes. When he returns, it's no longer routine. The villa is dark, no response, no movement, the kind of silence that doesn't feel neutral. It feels wrong. He knocks, waits, nothing. At that point, the decision is made to use an emergency key, and that's when the situation shifts from uncertain to critical. Ashlee is found inside, suspended from an internal wardrobe rod using a bathrobe belt. But here's the detail that changes everything.
Spoke to the family of Ashlee Robinson. She's the 31-year-old influencer who was on vacation with her fiance celebrating her birthday. He actually proposed on the trip. But something crazy happened. She was having a good time. Her family said she was very excited to be there, shared pictures with the family, FaceTimed them when she was proposed to. But they released a statement saying that Ashlee was found unconscious in her villa and was rushed to a local hospital where her death was.
She is still alive, struggling. This is not a discovery of a completed act. It is an interruption, a moment caught in between. An alarm is raised immediately. Staff respond. There is urgency now, not speculation. She is rushed for medical attention, first locally, then transferred for specialized care. For a brief window, there is still a possibility of survival, but the next day that possibility disappears. She passes, and just like that, the case shifts again, from incident to death investigation. On paper, the sequence appears linear, timed, documented, structured, but structure doesn't eliminate questions. It creates them. Because while all of this is unfolding, there is another detail running parallel to it, one that becomes central to public skepticism. Joe McCann is not there. According to the official account, he had been relocated to a separate villa approximately 8 to 10 minutes away. That distance is emphasized, repeated, reinforced. It becomes the foundation of his absence.
She was starting the next chapter of her life. She called us and FaceTimed us to share with us her travel.
Ashlee's mother says she never would have expected that less than a week later, her daughter would be dead. On April 8th, she says Ashlee called, saying she and her fiance got into an argument and were moved to separate rooms. The next day, she received another call, this time from her fiance.
He told me that Ashlee did something to herself and that she was being taken to the hospital. I said, what happened, when? And he told me it had been 11 hours prior.
Hours later, the luxury resort the couple was staying at called saying that Ashlee...
The reason he could not have been present, but that same detail is now being examined from a different angle, because distance, in theory, protects. In practice, it depends on timing, and timing in this case is unusually precise. A 10-minute request, a 20-minute return, an 8 to 10-minute separation. Everything sits within tight margins, close enough to control a narrative, but also close enough to question it. This is where commentary from Jaguar Wright begins to intensify, not with direct conclusions, but with implications that challenge the structure itself. She points toward familiarity, toward the idea that this wasn't an unfamiliar environment for Joe, that he understood the setting, the people, the flow of operations behind the scenes, and when familiarity exists, unpredictability decreases, which raises a difficult question. Was the timeline simply recorded or carefully aligned? Because if every key moment, the separation, the request, the discovery, fits together too cleanly, then the story stops feeling organic. It starts feeling arranged, and the more closely it's examined, the more another issue emerges. Control. Who controlled the space? Who controlled the information? And who benefits from a timeline that removes one person completely from the scene? These are not conclusions. They are fractures, points where the official version holds, but only if it isn't pushed too hard, because once it is, the structure doesn't collapse. It shifts. And in that shift, the case stops being about what is known and becomes about what might have been positioned to be believed.
All right, hear me out. And maybe this is just me, but I just thought about it because I was driving on my way home. I'd really be ready to cut a nigga off over a small. Like the littlest thing, I'd just be turned off. It was mad people in the regular lane, and the express lane was clear as. I'm so zooming through that. Pass it. Feet. As a grown man in 2023, living in the state of Florida, specifically Dade County, Broward County, doing without a sun pass. Like honestly, you want to just vibe in traffic. Vibe. Could take you 15 minutes to get somewhere. You want to chill out for the next 45 minutes sitting in a regular lane for what? It ain't gonna work with me, baby. It ain't gonna work. It ain't gonna work. I ain't gonna lie. I'm talking about, yo, babe, get over into the express lanes faster. Nah, like I ain't finna do all that. Drive over them cones.
After the timeline is established, the focus shifts to what remains unseen, the pieces that don't fit neatly into official structure, the details that sit just outside confirmation but refuse to disappear. One of those details is the ring, not where it should have been, not on her, not secured with her belongings. Instead, it is reportedly found in a separate location, a vehicle, and more importantly, it is said to carry what appears to be blood traces, unverified, unconfirmed, but impossible to ignore. Because objects don't move without reason. And when something as symbolic as an engagement ring appears detached from the person it belonged to, it raises a different kind of question, not about emotion, but about sequence. When did it leave her? And why? There is no clear answer, only speculation. But speculation, in this case, keeps building around one central issue: inconsistency. That inconsistency deepens when attention turns to the autopsy. It has been completed. That much is acknowledged, but the results have not been made public. The family is still waiting. Communication appears limited. The release of the body is delayed. Each of these factors individually could have an explanation. Together they create silence, and silence in a case already surrounded by tension does not calm anything down. It amplifies it, because when information is withheld, intentionally or procedurally, the gap it leaves behind is quickly filled by interpretation. That's where the narrative begins to evolve again. According to sources close to the situation, Ashlee Jenae had expressed fear before the trip reached its final stage, not a passing concern, something more sustained. She had reportedly confided in a friend that she wanted to end the relationship, that the arguments had crossed into something heavier, not just conflict. Pressure. And pressure, when combined with isolation, can change behavior quickly, because by the time those statements are placed next to everything else, the arguments, the separation, the final timeline, they begin to form a pattern, not a confirmed one, but one that feels connected. That's when attention shifts again, this time to history. Past behavior doesn't determine present outcomes, but it does influence perception. And in this case, reports about Joe McCann begin to resurface. Prior relationship issues, allegations of aggression, decisions that raised concern even before this trip ever happened. Individually, they are fragments. Together, they start to shape context, and context matters, because without it, the case remains isolated, a single event in a controlled environment. With it, the situation expands into something more layered. This is where commentary from Jaguar Wright reaches its most pointed tone, not in direct accusation, but in framing. She suggests that what happened may not exist as a standalone incident, that it sits at the intersection of secrecy, control, and timing, that it only appears simple because it has been presented that way, and that once those layers are questioned, the narrative begins to lose stability. At the same time, there are growing discussions about the scale of attention the case is receiving. While no official confirmation outlines external involvement, there are ongoing claims that the situation has reached beyond local jurisdiction, that it is being observed at a higher level, again not confirmed, but persistent. But And persistence in cases like this often signals that the story is not finished, because despite the timeline, despite the official framing, despite the absence created by distance, one question continues to surface. Not about how she was found, not about where he was placed, but about what happened in between, that unaccounted space, those missing minutes, because that is where certainty ends, and speculation begins to take over. In the end, the case does not close with an answer. It holds on a contradiction, a structured narrative on one side, a growing set of unresolved details on the other, and somewhere between them, a version of events that has yet to be fully revealed. Until that gap is addressed, the story remains exactly where it is now. Incomplete. And this is where everything stops feeling like a coincidence and starts feeling like something that was never meant to be fully understood. Because the more you look at this case, the less it behaves like a simple tragedy. The timeline is tight, almost too tight. The distance is emphasized almost too perfectly. The silence around key details is louder than any official statement that's been released so far. Now you have claims, questions, and a growing sense that something isn't lining up the way it should. Jaguar Wright has already pushed this story into a different direction, suggesting that what happened to Ashlee Jenae may not be as straightforward as it's being presented. Not confirmed, not proven, but enough to make people stop and look twice. And once people start looking, things tend to unravel, because if even a fraction of these claims hold weight, then this isn't just about one night. It's about everything leading up to it. The arguments, the separation, the controlled timing, the missing clarity, and the question nobody can shake off is simple, but dangerous. What if the version being told is the version that benefits someone? At this point, the truth isn't just being waited on. It's being demanded. So now it's on you. Look at the details. Question the timeline. Decide for yourself what makes sense and what doesn't, because one thing is certain. This story is far from over, and whatever comes out next could change everything.